So in this video today, we're going to talk about special right triangles, the 30, 60, 90 specifically. So we're going to determine the side lengths of triangles with 30, 60, 90 degree angles, and this is AKS 5, IOA 5A. We're going to explain by similarity side ratios in the right triangle 30, 60, 90, okay, and what those properties are. So first we're going to decompose the equilateral triangle. So we're going to draw an equilateral triangle that's starting on your paper. And knowing it's equilateral, we would put tick marks on all three sides because that means all three sides are the same. Then it says draw an altitude of the triangle and label it A. So I have already done that, drawn that. So that is going to be my A right there. And altitude is a height. So that's just another way to say height, and we're going to label it A. Then it says let the shortest side, okay, wait, let me go back a minute. So if this is a 30 equilateral triangle, then all the angles are 60 degrees, right? All of these, because 180 divided by 3 is 60. So all of those three angles were 60 degrees. Should have said that at the beginning. Then when we draw this altitude also, it's a right angle to the base, okay? So that's a right angle. And it also bisects that top 60 degree angle. So now this is 30 over here, and this is 30 over here, okay? Now we have a 30, 60, 90 triangle. It says let the shortest side of the right triangle be 1 unit long. So that means this is 1 here and this is 1 there, which means that whole side would be 2, which means the other sides are 2, right? Okay. Then it says let's find A. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. So A squared plus 1 squared, so these are our sides of our triangle right here, is equal to our what? That's our hypotenuse, right? Equals 2 squared. So that's going to be A squared plus 1 equals 4. We're going to subtract that 1 from both sides, so A squared is going to be equal to 3. Then we're going to take the square roots of both sides, right? So A is going to be equal to the square root of 3. And down here it says what is the length of the hypotenuse? Well, here's our hypotenuse, right? So that's going to be 2, and then A we just found was the square root of 3. What we just did was we derived the equation for the sides, I should say, we derived the formulas for the sides of a 30, 60, 90 triangle, okay? And this formula is on your formula sheet, okay? So in a 30, 60, 90, the length of the hypotenuse is 2 times the length of the short leg. This is our short leg. We know this because we can see it, number one, and because it is opposite that 30 degree angle. Okay. Then it also says the length, the hypotenuse, and we know what the hypotenuse is. The hypotenuse is opposite the right angle, right? We've been dealing with that all along. We've been saying draw an arrow there, so we know what that's the hypotenuse. And then we have this long leg here, and it is x square root of 3. Okay, so now we're going to do some of these. So the very first thing we need to do is figure out what kind of triangle it is, and this is a 30, 60, 90. So this is 30 degrees because 90 minus 60 is 30, right? Okay. Then I'm going to draw that arrow like we've been doing because I know that's my hypotenuse. Okay, so what is the short leg in this drawing? It's x, right? So x is there. Our long leg is going to be x square root of 3. And I'm going to suggest to you guys that you put these formulas on these sides every time, okay? And then this is going to be 2x, okay? So let's find NL. NL is our long leg, right? NL is this one right here, NL, right? Okay. So what are we going to do? We're just going to do 2.5 times the square root of 3. Then when we're looking for our hypotenuse, that would be our NM, right? NM. And that's just going to be 2 times 2.5, and that's going to be 5. So once again, I'm going to say use the formulas, and you got a formula sheet, remember. So we know that the shortest leg is this one down here, so that's going to be x, right? We know that our long leg is going to be x square root of 3, and we know that our hypotenuse is going to be 2x, okay? So I'm going to do this every time because it's an easy way then to work the problem. Okay, so let's find x. So if we're looking for x here, aren't we just going to go 13 square root of 3 over 3 times what? 2, right? 2 times that. So remember, when you're doing this, you just multiply this times this. That's it. Because isn't this 2 over 1? It is. Okay, so this is going to be 26 square root of 3 over 3, and that's going to be my x, right? Okay, now we're going to find our y. Okay, so our y is going to be that 13 square root of 3 over 3 times the square root of 3. Remember, this is square root of 3 over 1. So what is the square root of 3 times the square root of 3? And we've talked about this already a good bit, right? Isn't that going to be the square root of 9? What's the square root of 9? 3, right? Okay, so this is going to be 13 times 3 over 3. Now you could multiply that out. That's 39 divided by 3. Or you can just cross out that 3 because if it's in the top and the bottom, it simplifies, doesn't it? So y is going to be equal to 13 here. Okay? All right, let's see if you can do the you try. Come back to me when you're done. So once again, we're going to label these sides. So this is going to be our x. This is our hypotenuse, right? So this is going to be our 2x. And this is our long leg over here. So this is x square root of 3, right? So what are we going to do? We're just going to plug these in. So for x, we're just going to say 5 times the square root of 3. Boom, done, right? For y, we're just doing 2 times our 5. So that's just 10, okay? All right, next one. Now this is probably the hardest one, only because we're going to have to rationalize the denominator like we did the other day. But we're just going to go ahead and label our sides like we've been doing. This is our short side, right? Because it's opposite the 30-degree angle, and it's obviously the short side. This one right here is going to be x square root of 3 because it's our long side, and this is our hypotenuse, remember, so it's going to be 2x. So when we're trying to find the x, we're going to do the equation that's already set up for us right there. See it? Okay, so we're going to say x square root of 3 equals 4. Remember, we're going to divide both sides by the square root of 3. So that's now gone, and we just have x over there. Okay, now we cannot have a radical in the denominator, so we got to multiply this by the square root of 3 over the square root of 3, recalling that anything over itself is 1. So we are not essentially changing this function. Okay, so on the top now we have 4 square root of 3, and once again, let's talk about what does this simplify to be. That's going to be 3 times 3. That's going to be the square root of 9, right? So the square root of 9 is 3. So this is going to be over 3. And that's as simple as that one gets, okay? We cannot simplify it more unless that top number is divisible by the 3, okay? Now and that was FG, right? Okay, now let's talk about EG. What are we going to do to what we just found? That was our x, right? So we're just going to multiply it by 2. So 2 times our 4 square root of 3 over 3. Remember, once again, we're just multiplying that 2 times that 4. So this is going to be 8 square root of 3 over 3. And again, we can't reduce it because 8 is not divisible by 3, giving us a whole number. If it was a 9 or a 12 or some number like that, then we could. All right. I encourage you guys to pause the video here, see if you can do these next two, because you really, really, really need to practice this concept, okay? I'm going to go ahead and do the next one. So here again, this is going to be my x, this is going to be my 2x, this is going to be my x square root of 3. Notice there's my equation right there that we're going to solve for, right? So x square root of 3 is going to be equal to 6. Again, divide both sides by my square root of 3. You should see patterns emerging here now, right? So x is equal to, and then this we're going to multiply by the square root of 3 over the square root of 3 again. On top we get 6 square root of 3. What does this reduce to be again? Just 3, right? Now, this time, however, this right here can be simplified, can't it? So this is going to end up being 6 divided by 3 is 2. So 2 square root of 3, right? So that is going to be my y, because that's what I put up there by the x, okay? Now we're going to find our x. And our x is just going to be 2 times what we just found, right? 2 times 2 square root of 3 is going to be equal to what? 4 square root of 3. And that's going to be our x. All right, pause the video here, please, and try to do the you try to. Okay, so here again, this is our x. This is going to be our 2x. This is going to be our x square root of 3. It's going to be equal to that 15, right? So we're going to do x square root of 3 equals 15. We're going to divide both sides by the square root of 3. That's now gone. X equals, we're going to multiply by the square root of 3 over the square root of 3. This is going to be 15 square root of 3 over 3. So hopefully by now you've seen this pattern, right? Because this right here simplifies to be 3. Notice that 15 can be divided by 3, right? So x is going to be equal to 5 square root of 3 because 3 goes into 15 5 times. And then for our y, we're just going to multiply 2 times that. 2 times our 5 square root of 3. So that y is going to be equal to 10 square root of 3. Okay? All right, the next one says, given triangle ABC with CB being 5, determine the length of CD and DB. Okay, so once again, this is our x, right? This is our x square root of 3. This is going to be equal to our 2x. So there's where we're going to find our x. So 5 equals 2x, divide both sides by 2. So x is going to be equal to 5 over 2. So that's equal to our dB, right? Okay, now we're going to just multiply that by the square root of 3. So when we're trying to find CD, that's just going to be 5 over 2 times the square root of 3. Now remember, square root of 3 is square root of 3 over 1, so we're just going to multiply across the top and across the bottom. So CD is going to be equal to 5 square root of 3 over 2. And some of y'all are asking me why, or asking why didn't we make 5 over 2 2.5? Because if you notice the pattern, we've been doing fractions the whole time, okay? So go ahead and pause the video here and see if you can do the next one. Okay, so this one's equal. This is equal to x, right? This is equal to x square root of 3. Again, this is our hypotenuse, right? So this is equal to 2x. Okay? So that means 14 equals 2x, divide both sides by 2. X is equal to 7, right? Okay, then when we're trying to find, which is equal to our y in this problem, right? Okay, so then we're going to say x equals 7 square root of 3. Boom, done. So now we're just looking for the answer. This is the same. X is equal to 7 square root of 3, and y is equal to 7, so that was D. Okay, the next one says find the values of x and y. Give your answers in simplest radical form. So once again, this is equal to 2x because it's our hypotenuse, right? This is x, so we're good there, and this is equal to x square root of 3, right? So what are we going to do here? We're going to divide both sides by 2, right? So x is going to be equal to 9 square root of 3 because you just divide the coefficient, the number in front of that radical, right? Okay, then what do we have to do to get y? So y, we're going to do 9 square root of 3 times the square root of 3. Well, we've done this a few times by now. What does this simplify to be? Square root of 9, right? And that's what that is, 3, right? So 9 times 3. So y is equal to 27. Okay? Go ahead and do the you try 4 and come back to me when you're done. Okay, on this one again, this is going to be my x, right? This is going to be my hypotenuse, right? So it is 2x. And this one right here is going to be equal to x square root of 3, right? So that's the one we're going to use to solve for x. 3 square root of 3 is equal to x square root of 3. Hopefully, y'all's Algebra 1 teacher showed you that if you have the exact same thing on both sides of the equal sign, you can cross it out, right? And the reason for that is if we divided by the square root of 3 and the square root of 3, it would just go away anyway, wouldn't it? Okay, so that means x is equal to 3 here. So that's our v, right? Then what are we going to do with it? We're just going to multiply it by 2, right, for u. u is equal to 2 times 3. So that's equal to 6. So which answer has U6 and V3? That would be B up here. Okay? All right, so the next one says Jeremy's going to show off his skateboarding ability to his geometry class. He has a skateboard ramp that must be set up to rise from the ground at 30 degrees. So I'm going to make it a ramp and I'm going to make it rise. So this is going to be my 30 degrees. And then I'm going to clean this up a little bit so I can make a straight line over here. Okay. If the height from the ground to the platform is 8 feet, so that would be this right here, right? How far is the ramp to the platform? So it's asking for this, isn't it? Now, what is that? What part of the triangle is that? This would be our x, right? So this would be equal to 2x, right? So all we have to do to find our answer is 2 times 8, and that's 16 feet. The next one says Aaron saw an old yield sign and bought it from an antique store. He wanted to hang it up in his room because it looked cool, and it was in the shape of an equilateral triangle. Okay, so it says equilateral triangles. That means all of those are congruent, right? It says the length of one side is 34. So this is 34, this is 34, and this is 34, right? And then it asks us what is the height. Okay, so what else do we know about this? We know this is 60 degrees, right? This is 60 degrees. And we know this is 60 degrees, right? So if we draw an altitude or height, that's our height, right? It's going to be a right angle up here, correct? And now what does this angle become? It becomes 30 degrees, doesn't it? Okay. So now this is 30, 60, 90 triangle, isn't it? Okay. So here's my question. What would this right here be? Wouldn't it be half of that 34? Indeed, it would be 17, wouldn't it? So if we're looking for our height, remember, what is the formula for this side? This is our long side, right? So isn't this going to be x square root of 3? And wasn't this up here x? So this is going to be 17 times the square root of 3. Go ahead and do that in your calculator. And make sure it's in classic form if it's a TI 30. So when I did this, I got that it was 29.44 inches, right? Because it says to the nearest hundredth, I want 2 decimals. All right, so here's our last one. It says find the area. We're looking for area, so that's going to be base times height, right? Area equals base times height. So we got to find the base and the height of this rectangle if the length of the diagonal is 40 millimeters. So this would be 40 millimeters, right? There's our right angle. So this is going to be equal to 2x because it's our hypotenuse, right? This would be our x, and this would be our x square root of 3, okay? So if we know that 2x equals 40, then to find our x, we're just going to divide by 2, right? So x is going to be equal to 20. So that's going to be our height, right? And what are we going to do to find our base? We're going to do our x, which was 20, times the square root of 3. Now, what are we going to do with these two lengths? We're going to multiply them by each other, right? So you can do that right there in your calculator as well. And let's just round this to the nearest millimeter, okay? So I got 692.82, so this is 693 millimeters, okay?